Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. We have now had our hands on Marvel Spider-Man 2 for over a week, and if you're anything like Andreas and I, you have poured dozens of hours into this game, and you have achieved the coveted Platinum Trophy. But while we had our heads buried into this game throughout this past week, members of the Insomniac dev team, most notably the Game Director Bryan Intihar, actually conducted multiple interviews, and they provided some pretty exciting new details about the upcoming Wolverine game out of Insomniac and its potential connection to Marvel Spider-Man 2. And we also got some pretty exciting details about the potential for Daredevil DLC, or who knows, maybe even a Daredevil standalone game coming out of Insomniac. And we're going to break down all of this new information for you today. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It will notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. Now with all of that out of the way, Andreas, are you ready to talk about some Wolverine and Daredevil?
Oh yeah, let's do this, guys. The first bit of news that I want to talk about today is about Wolverine, Nick. This actually is sourced from a kind of funny podcast of Spider-Man 2 that released earlier yesterday. It is put into text on GameInformer.com, and so I want to focus on that Game Informer article because they highlight some really cool points of that interview with Bryan Intihar. For the full interview, I highly recommend checking out Kinda Funny Podcast's full interview because there is some great stuff in there. But if you just wanted the spark notes and highlights here, you are in the right place here at Lunar Squadron. Nick, this article from Game Informer is entitled Wolverine Game Set in the Same Universe as Marvel Spider-Man, Insomniac Confirms. It is by Marcus Stewart. And Nick, the crux of this article is that Wolverine will be set in the same universe as Spider-Man. How cool is that?
Yeah, this is very cool. This is very exciting. Here, I want to read through this paragraph, and then we'll kind of break down all of our thoughts on it. So I want to jump to this paragraph where it says, when host Greg Miller asked if it had been previously confirmed or denied whether or not their spin on Wolverine shared the same Earth as its Spider-Man, Intihar replied by saying, quote, "They're all 1048. I think I got that right, but yeah. Intihar is referring to Earth 1048, which is the designation for the Marvel Universe Insomniac superhero games occupy. So this is incredibly exciting. You know, Andreas, to be completely honest with you, this was something that I was expecting. I didn't know we even really needed confirmation on this. I had fully expected once it was confirmed and announced that Insomniac would be making their own standalone Wolverine game, that it would be taking place in the same universe as their Spider-Man game. It's just a cleaner way of doing things to have all of your characters, especially when it's coming from the same area, that being Marvel. It makes the most sense for it to take place in the same universe. But this is incredibly exciting because this opens up the possibility down the road for crossover events for Spider-Man to somehow end up in the Wolverine game or in a future game of Spider-Man for Wolverine to make an appearance. Like, it opens up the door now for those possibilities now that it's been confirmed that they take place in the same universe. And, you know, throughout the events of Marvel Spider-Man 2, there are references to Madripoor, the city of Madripoor, and that is a location that Wolverine has frequented a lot throughout the comics and throughout the history of that character. And it is one of the locations that has been rumored or discussed as a potential location for the Wolverine game to take place. So it does make a lot of sense for these characters to be taking place in the same universe, and it's really exciting to me just because we know now, you know, the Avengers Tower exists in this universe. We have references to the Fantastic Four. There's a Wakandan embassy in New York City in Marvel Spider-Man 2. Like, there are all of these characters, and there is just the foundation being built for, say, if like 10 to 15 years from now down the road, if Insomniac wanted to do a mega crossover game on the level of like a Secret Wars or something bigger than that, like, the foundation is being built for that now. Not saying it's going to happen, but they are laying the seeds and the foundation to make that a reality if it's something they really wanted to chase down the road, and that is incredibly exciting.
You know what, Nick? I'm really glad personally that Bryan Intihar has stepped up to confirm this. I know it was almost seemed to be like a given, but after playing through Spider-Man 2, I was a little concerned about this because if you will have played Spider-Man 2, spoiler alert if you haven't, but if you have, you will know that there is not a overt Wolverine reference in that game. And like you mentioned, Nick, there are a few passive references like Madripoor. There's the Wolverine suit in the game. There's a reference to Trask Industries, which is the firm that's responsible for creating those Sentinels. And Trask Industries is a rival of the X-Men. So there are oblique references to Wolverine as being in the same universe in the game. But I personally was wondering why Insomniac made that choice not to overtly have Wolverine involved in the story of Spider-Man 2. And we get additional context from Bryan Intihar in this interview that they simply wanted to let the team responsible for Wolverine to cook on their project without any interference with the Spider-Man 2 project. And so that's really the driving force behind that creative decision. They wanted to allow the Wolverine team some space to cook and create their ideal Wolverine experience without being inhibited by any tie-ins with Spider-Man 2. So I am, that said, very much looking forward to seeing how these two IP are going to cross over in the future. Nick, you just got my creative juices flowing just mentioning Secret Wars. Like, there's so much potential for this. There's so much potential beyond integration between Spider-Man and Wolverine, because there's a whole MCU, there's a whole catalog of characters out there that Insomniac could get their hands on and integrate into their Earth 1048. This really could be a special Insomniac Spider-Verse, and I am so down for it.
Yeah, it would be incredibly exciting, and there are a couple other references throughout the story of Spider-Man 2. I don't want to spoil those for anybody, but you guys will know what we're talking about if you've played this game, like who and what we're referring to. But for those of you who are wondering what references to Madripoor and Trask we're talking about that take place in Marvel Spider-Man 2, in case you missed it, there is a point in the game where you will come across a letter, and that letter in the same paragraph directly refers to Madripoor and Trask Industries. It takes place in the exact same paragraph. So as soon as I saw that, Andreas, you and I, we played the game together. I was like, as soon as I saw Madripoor, I was like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like sitting up and pointing at the screen. I was like, hey, Madripoor, like there's the reference, right? Like there's the potential connection to Wolverine down the road. And now, of course, today we have confirmation from Bryan Intihar saying, yeah, they take place in the same universe. So anything is possible down the road with all of these references and all of these characters existing in the same universe. It really is whatever Insomniac wants to do, and I can't wait to see what they do. But Andreas, we also have some information about another character that exists in this universe, and I am talking about Daredevil. And what we are referring to is IGN put this article out about how they noticed that when they swung by Hell's Kitchen and they went to the law firm of Nelson and Murdoch, they actually noticed some changes that had been made to that location in Marvel Spider-Man 2. Mainly what they had noticed was that the sign out front, the names had been stripped from the sign, and there was a brand new eviction notice placed on the door of the building. So there were changes made to this location in this game, and IGN had kind of speculated maybe it was an error, maybe they had just made a mistake and forgotten about it, but they actually directly asked Bryan Intihar on their Spoilercast episode of Beyond, which took place earlier this week. They asked him about it, and what he said was a very interesting quote, to be honest with you, Andreas. He said, "That's a good question. Stay tuned. Good find, though." That quote is, to me, Andreas, incredibly revealing, because to me, I take that as they have plans for Daredevil somewhere down the road. Like, stay tuned. That's a good find. Like, we got something we're cooking up. Like, stick with us for a little bit, is at least how I'm taking it. Now, whether or not that's going to be perhaps a DLC to Marvel Spider-Man 2, which would be incredibly exciting if you guys have played through the game, there are a lot of opportunities down the road for DLC for this game. Like, they've laid the seeds for a lot of DLC options, and a Daredevil one would be a welcomed addition, or maybe thinking a little bigger. Could we be in store for a potential Daredevil standalone game? Personally, I would absolutely love that. If I had it my way, I would take a full-fledged Daredevil game in the same vein that I would take a full-fledged Venom standalone game, but I don't know if they have the time and the resources to handle something like that, but sounds like they got something planned for Daredevil, which is really cool because I love that character.
I mean, if they don't have something, plan for Daredevil, then I mean, that would be a little rude here, because if you guys have stayed in touch with the Nelson and Murdoch offices throughout the Insomniac Spider-Verse, they've been tinkering with this office since the first game. In Spider-Man PS4, there was an eviction notice and the title that said Nelson and Murdoch. In Miles Morales, there was no eviction notice and it looked like the office was up and running, and now they've tinkered with this sign and the storefront for Nelson and Murdoch for a third time here. And so I would just be looking at Insomniac kind of launching a accusation of cruelty to them if they were tinkering with this office, messing with us, getting us talking about it. And then Bryan Intihar here is stoking those flames even more, saying, stay tuned, good find, great question. I just, come on, like, Insomniac has to do something with this at this point. They are just playing way too coy with it, and I hope that they do something with it, because Nick, we both know that they would do Daredevil justice. They would absolutely kill it.
Yeah, they absolutely would, and it just makes so much sense for it to happen in a Spider-Man game because of the established relationship in the comic lines over the years of Daredevil and Spider-Man teaming up. Like, this is such a great opportunity to get Daredevil back into games. And of course, like, yeah, we have Intihar here teasing, stay tuned, good find, though. Like, of course, that could mean absolutely nothing, but when I read that, I was just like, man, it really sounds like they have plans for something with this character at some point, and it would just make so much sense for that to happen in a DLC for Spider-Man 2. That is one of the characters that we talked about months ago that made a ton of sense to finally make an appearance in this universe in Marvel Spider-Man 2, and it still makes a ton of sense. So I really think that there should be a standalone DLC for Daredevil in this game. It just makes so much sense, and it then doesn't require them to immediately start working on a standalone Daredevil game and devoting resources to that, which again, I don't know if they have the time and resources to that. It just sounds like a great compromise here, at least to start, and maybe we could have a Daredevil game later down the road, but to start, introducing this character via DLC for this game, it just makes so much sense, and just to me seems like the right direction. Assuming that there is DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 2, I don't think that's been confirmed yet, but it definitely seems like they've been laying the seeds over the last week within the game and within these interviews that we might have some DLC to look forward to in hopefully the near future. But guys, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. What do you think of this confirmation of Wolverine and Spider-Man taking place in the same universe? What possibilities do you think this opens the door for down the road for Insomniac to explore with character crossovers, you know, with the Avengers Tower, Fantastic Four, the Sanctum, we have the Wakandan Embassy, like so much potential there to honestly travel the world, especially if Wolverine takes place in Madripoor. Like, Insomniac is really laying the foundation to have a mega expansion to their universe. So let us know your thoughts on that, and let us know your thoughts on this Daredevil stuff out of IGN, and do you think we'll be getting a Daredevil DLC down the road, or perhaps even a standalone Daredevil game? And would you even want it? I hope your answer is yes, because Daredevil kicks ass, and I would love to see him in this game. He's one of my all-time favorite characters, so I will take whatever we can get out of that character. But let us know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. But guys, that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.